Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is part of a chorus of world leaders calling for a 21-day pause in fighting at the Lebanon-Israel border.
We need to see the end of violence against civilians, women and children losing their lives. We need to see an immediate ceasefire, a de-escalation by both Israel and Hezbollah, and we're going to continue to be pushing and calling for that.
French President Emmanuel Macron is also calling for a ceasefire. He's currently in Canada on a trip that has included stops in Ottawa and in Montreal. In moments, Macron will meet with Quebec Premier François Legault. But while in Ottawa, the French president sat down for an exclusive interview with the CBC's chief political correspondent, Rosemary Barton, and with Radio-Canada's parliamentary bureau chief, Louis Blouin. And Rosemary joins me now. Rosemary, the French president comes here at a difficult time for France, a difficult time for the world with the conflicts going on. What did you cover in your interview?
Yeah, and a difficult time domestically. Sometimes, as we know, with our own prime minister, it's good to get away to a different country to get some perspective on what you're doing. First of all, the format was a little bit unusual, perhaps not for him, but certainly for us. They were very committed to the idea of doing an interview both in French and English, a bilingual interview, to demonstrate his abilities and to sort of honor the official languages of Canada. So Louis and I sat down and did that together. So obviously there were questions about protecting the French language, about Quebec's role. That was sort of Louis's thrust, as well as questions, though, about what President Macron is going through. Last night he had a one-on-one dinner with the Prime Minister at his home, and I talked to him about what it is about the two longest-serving G7 leaders right now, Prime Minister Trudeau, followed by Mr. Macron, that makes it so difficult for them to govern, that makes it so difficult to convince their citizens that they're making the right decisions. And he says, and you'll hear more of this on Sunday, though, that it's normal to have these challenges, that when leaders have come through COVID, sometimes their citizens forget what governments did for them. And that it is normal to have hard times, and the important thing is not to stop. What was interesting about that, and he goes on a little bit, was the language was very similar to the kind of language we hear from the Prime Minister about trying to deliver to people what you need to deliver and trying to convince them that you have helped them in the past. Because as you know, domestically, he just recently named a cabinet about a week ago. He had that snap election over the course of the summer, hoping that that would improve his fortunes. It did quite the opposite, and now he's balancing sort of a right-wing and left-wing coalition very precariously, and we'll see what that means for him. But the similarities between him and Prime Minister Trudeau are remarkable, actually.
Yeah, his Prime Minister was here earlier in the year, and it did not go very well for him.
And he has a new Prime Minister now who's far more right-wing, so he's having to manage all that.
Exactly, they had the snap election, and it did not go the way intended. So he's dealing with a lot of those same factors. We're seeing those issues in Germany as well. But you spoke to President Macron about what's happening in Lebanon with Israel and Lebanon, and as I said, France is one of the many countries now leading a call for a ceasefire. What did he have to say on that?
Well, and very particularly France. France has a deep historical relationship with Lebanon. Earlier this week, he recorded a video, spoke directly to people in Lebanon about France's support, with some criticism, I should say, from Israel, because his position is quite particular. He again said just moments ago with the Prime Minister, they don't want Lebanon to become the next Gaza. This war cannot expand. I'll play a little bit of what we had to talk about just earlier today. You are one of the countries trying to negotiate a 21-day ceasefire with Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu said today, not going to happen. We are going to push into Lebanon. What are you prepared to do diplomatically to get to a point where this stops and the war doesn't further escalate?
I think first I want to say that Lebanon has so much suffered during the past few years. And clearly we stand shoulder to shoulder with this country and these people. They are wonderful people. This is a great country with a very special relationship with France. And our duty, our objective is peace in Lebanon and peace for Lebanese. I think Hezbollah is clearly the key question in Lebanon, and I think during the past few years they played a very negative role in the political landscape and for the security of the south of Lebanon. But today, Israel is taking a huge responsibility with a series of operations, with strikes, targeting as well civilians, and a lot of civilians died. We worked very hard during the past few days with the United States of America. We delivered yesterday together a paper We had the agreement of all the Lebanese components. The Prime Minister expressed himself at the Security Council. Hezbollah, through himself, expressed the fact that they were ready of a ceasefire. Now everybody is waiting from the Prime Minister of Israel. If he refuses today, he takes a huge responsibility. And we will go to the Security Council. We had a very well-known resolution designing the responsibility of both sides, the 1701 resolution. We do stick to this one and we want the respect. UNIFIL is present at the border, and we wait for all the partners to be very vocal and committed with us in order to send this clear message. Israel cannot invade Lebanon today. War is not possible in Lebanon today. It would be a huge mistake, a huge risk of escalation, and not what the people can live. I do believe that we still have some hours during which the Prime Minister can commit and give the chance for peace during these 21 days. And I do believe that the US now has to increase the pressure on the Prime Minister of Israel to do so.
But you also want Hezbollah to stop. That's what the Prime Minister of Israel would say to you. It's fine to ask us to stop, but what are you going to say to the terrorist organization who's been firing into Israel?
This is totally true. This is why we did act. This is why we are present with UNIFIL in support of the Lebanese armed forces. But let's be clear, this is a sovereign country. So our role as an international community is to help the Lebanese armed forces and Lebanon to restore its full sovereignty and to completely get rid of all these forces, militias, and people in the south, but not through the invasion of a neighbor.
So he believes that the response from Israel's Prime Minister is not definitive. I guess he's hoping that pressure will mount in order for this ceasefire to take hold. So far, that does not seem to be well received by Israel. We also talked a bit about Ukraine, because obviously France deeply connected to that crisis and to NATO as well, and a little bit about the rise of the right, the extreme right, actually, in France and how he's managing that.
Okay, Rosie, looking forward to seeing the full thing. This is CBC's chief political correspondent, Rosemary Barton. And you can watch that full interview with President Macron this weekend on Rosemary Barton Live. That's Sunday morning from 10 till noon Eastern on CBC News Network right here, and from 11 to noon on your 11 to noon local on CBC Television.